Okay, so now we are ready to grade some of this. So let's do that now. Okay, so on worksheet number 1, looking at these, it says write each expression using exponents. So we want to use exponential form. So in number 1, I have 2 3s. So I would write that 3 to the second power times m. On number 3, look at all the factors you have in common. I have 2, then 5 and 5. So that would be 2 times 5 squared times 1, 2, 3 d's, d to the third. Usually you want to simplify your numerical coefficients. So 5 squared is 25, and 25 times 2 is 50, d cubed, and that would be my final answer. Number 5. So in this case we have 1, 2, 3 negative 7s. So we would write that negative 7 to the third power. And then we put our variables in alphabetical order. So we have g squared and h squared. Evaluate each expression. Number 7, if I have negative 8 to the fourth power, that's the same thing as 4 negative 8s multiplied together. Negative 8 times negative 8 times negative 8 times negative 8. Negative times a negative is a positive 64. This is also a positive 64, and you're multiplying those together. And that gives you 4,096. Now, when it says evaluate, we want to know the whole number or fraction or even decimal, but we want to have it in the evaluation mode, not an exponent. So our answer should not have an exponent. Looking at number 13, we have 4 to the third divided by 2 to the third. 4 to the third divided by 2 to the third. So I need to evaluate the numerator and the denominator. And I know 2 cubed, and I also know 4 cubed from our previous units. 4 cubed is 64, 2 cubed is 8, and 64 divided by 8 is 8. Okay, we are evaluating each expression. So now I'm given this expression, m squared minus n cubed, if m equals 6 and n equals 2. So instead of an m, I'm going to replace it with a 6. So 6 squared minus, and instead of n, I'm going to replace that with a 2 cubed. If I'm evaluating, that means I need to get rid of these exponents. I need to actually multiply these out and see what I get. 6 squared is 36. 2 cubed is 8. 36 minus 8 is not 26. I don't know what I did there. 36 minus 8 is 28. And that would be our final answer for 17. Looking at number 19, get rid of all this. Number 19 says x to the fifth minus y squared, all raised to the second power. So I'm going to rewrite everything except for my x and y now. I'm going to replace that with 2 and 8. So this would be x is actually 2 to the fifth minus y is actually 8 to the second. And then I'm going to raise that to the second power. So I'm going to work inside the parentheses first. and go ahead and do 2 to the 5th power. So that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. That's 32 minus 8 squared is 64. And I'm still raising it to the 2nd power. Now working inside those parentheses, 32 minus 64. So we're going to subtract them because they have different signs. So 64 take away 32 is 32, and it's negative because 64 has a larger absolute value or a larger distance from 0, so the number is going to be negative. And I'm raising that to the 2nd power. So I have a negative 32 times a negative 32, which would be a positive. In this case, I'm going to grab the calculator. 32 times 32 is 1024. And we don't have to write the positive. I just did that to accentuate so that you would know that it is a positive number. Let's look at number 21. 21 says Florida has about this many islands over 10 acres. About how many islands is it? So you're going to have to evaluate each one of these numbers. And since we already know our squares and cubes, this should be pretty easy to simplify. We've got 2 squared, which is 4, 3 squared, which is 9, and 5 cubed, which is 125. Now we're going to end up with some rather large numbers. 4 times 9 is 36, and 36 times 125 is 4,500.